In the last video, we saw how to use uh, primitive arrays, integer arrays, Boolean arrays. In this video, we will see how to use object arrays. So first of all, how do we create an object array? So we already have the employee class with the single integer property ID. So let's say we have to create an array to hold multiple employee objects. So we do that by defining the type, square brackets, and we say this is an employee array and give it a size. So let's say the size is 2. So this declaration says that I want to create an array of size 2 to hold employee objects. So there are two indexes, 0 and 1. We have not initialized any object. So only the array object is initialized on the heap. So if we try to, at this stage, if we try to, let's say, access one of the locations, first location, let's say, what do you think Java will print on the console? We see the value null. Interesting. The thing is, in Java, all the reference variables or all the objects are initialized with the default value of null reference variable. So if we have not created any object, the value of that reference variable is null. It is there, but it doesn't know where to point because we have not created any object. In this case, each array location is acting like a reference variable of type employee. It knows that it has to point to an employee object, but because we have not assigned any object to any location, so the default value is null. So let's do that. Let's create a new employee object, give it some ID 5, and let's create another employee object with a different ID 8. And now set the array location. So the first location says that I am holding an employee object, and second location says I also have an employee object. So in this case, the first location is pointing to this object and the second location is pointing to this object. Now, as I said, each array location acts as a reference variable. So zeroth location is acting as a reference variable. So we can do the same thing with this employee array 0, whatever we can do with employee 1, for example, because this is a reference variable to an employee object. Similarly, this whole construct 0th location is also a reference variable to employee object. So let's see what I mean by that. Now, if we try to print the IDs of those objects via array location. So can we access the property? Yes. You see the suggestion of this is basically the IDE feature, the suggestion, the supported properties. That's why as soon as I place the dot, I see the supported methods and properties. So we see that ID, we can access the ID. That's why we see the ID in the suggestion. Let's run it. And we see the ID 5 and 8. The 5 is the ID of this object, 8 is the ID of this object, and here we say that we are basically pointing to the same object. That's why when we said that get the reference or object from 0th location, access its ID, we get the same output. So it means that it is also a reference variable, same as emp1. And this is also a reference variable, first location, same as emp2. So again, it's the same thing. There are two employee objects on the heap, one more array object on the heap. but each location is also acting as a reference variable pointing to the same employee objects. So if we say that this is an object, this is the object 1, and this is object 2, then emp1 and employee array 0, they are pointing to object 1, and emp2 and employee array 1, they are pointing to object 2. Now what happens if we change the object via array? Let's say we picked the second object, first index, and we changed the ID to 9. On first location, we have employee 2 and the ID was 8. Now we change the ID to 9. How would it impact the arrow location and EMP2? So now if we try to print the same thing, and additionally, if we try to access the same thing via employee 2, what do we see on the output? We see that employee 1, the first object, still has the same property ID 5. Second object, because we changed the value here, it says the ID is 9. But the interesting thing is employee 2 reference variable, which is pointing to the second object, it also got impacted. It is also printing the value 9. It means that in case of object arrays, if we modify the state of an object via array operations, any reference variable that is pointing to the same object will be impacted, because ultimately we are manipulating the same object, and each array location is basically a reference variable to that object. So array size is fixed, but array locations are acting as reference variables, and whatever operations we do on the object via array location or array indexes, we change the underlying object, and any reference variable that is pointing to that same object will see those changes. And that's what we see on the console. So that's it on the object arrays for now. Hope it helps. Thank you.